Welcome to another edition of the eSpot with Camille. The eSpot is your location for the latest in entertainment, beauty, and design from the people who make it. Thanks for joining. Everyone, and welcome to the eSpot with Camille. I'm your host, Camille Kauer, and today we have a very special treat. I cannot wait for you to meet the one, the only Marie Torres, who is an Afro-Latina journalist and the newsroom leader, a managing editor at Spectrum News, and she's with over a decade of impact across North Carolina and Virginia. She's now vying for a national leadership seat with the NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists. Let's talk purpose, power, and the future of journalism on this episode of the eSpot. Welcome, Marie.
Hey, Camille. Hey, everyone. That's a great welcome. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Likewise. Game recognized game. So let's just jump right into it because I know you have a very busy schedule with all the news that's constantly popping off every 5 minutes. But I want to start with you started your journey into journalism at 16? Almost every newsroom role from anchor to director. How has that shaped your approach to leadership and mentorship today?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I got my start at, again, like you said, 16 years old, working for a kind of like a small town media company, kind of like almost like a mom and pop, if you would think about it that way. But it was in a really small rural community where it was literally like kind of like my mom's hometown, that area where she grew up in northeastern North Carolina in Weldon, Halifax near Northampton, covering Virginia. And I worked for 9 radio stations and the television station in one building. And my mentor, Les Atkins, was an anchor and did all of that work for all of the 9 radio stations as well as the television station. And he just saw something about me. He trained me. I was so eager to learn every single thing that I possibly could in TV. And so I asked him, I was like, show me how to do graphics. Show me how to roll a teleprompter, how to write a script, how to announce. How to edit something, how to literally take all what you did and put it on air, both for radio and television. And so after that, he said, I did so well during my internship role that he said, go to school. I went to UNC Greensboro. He said, come back and you got a job. And so I didn't really know. I was like, at 16 years old, you're kind of like, okay, well, it sounds great, and I did exactly what he told me to do. And I came back. He remembered who I was. He was not working in the newsroom anymore. He was working as a public information officer for a local school district. And he heard that I had applied for a position, just any position. It didn't even matter because I was like, I've been trained on all your equipment here. I know everything about this place. And he told my general manager, who rung him up, and he said, do you remember this girl? And he said, yes, hire her. Hire that girl. And really the rest is history. And so in regards to leadership and in regards to just my overall career path and journey, having that small town rural experience where you didn't know that you weren't supposed to do everything. I thought I was supposed to do everything because I was trained to do everything. And so when it came to leadership, what it did was make me more sympathetic to people who I manage because I know exactly what they're going through. I know how long it takes to render video. I know how long it takes to put graphics on something and to command a show. So it really helped me relate to people, to understand their challenges, and also know how to fix problems. So if they're encountering something, I have my years of experience, my bag of experience that I can bring to the table. So that's really been a big part of it, is starting small town, learning everything, being eager and hungry to learn everything. And so that's helped me and molded me into who I am today.
That's amazing. And to have a mentor at such a young age to kind of guide you, because how many people at 16 know what they want to do forever and actually end up doing it and love it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I knew since I was 12. I knew exactly what I wanted to do since I was 12. And I, watched a lot of TV. Probably before then, I grew up in the hood, upstate New York. Depending on where you are in New York, but the street that I lived on and the neighborhood I lived on was the hood. And my parents were good, 2 hardworking parents, both ministers. I'm a double preacher's kid, I'll tell you that. And the view outside of my window growing up, even younger than 12, was a crack house here, and a church in the middle. And so other than that, because I wasn't allowed to play outside, I had TV, and I probably watched way too much TV. Studies now probably would say, you know what, this is really unhealthy.
Guilty.
But yeah, right. But it gave me the opportunity to see what else the world had to offer. Well, someone's experience that was different from mine living in that community. Seeing drug deals and prostitution and crimes and break-ins and thefts and all that, but then also being very grounded in the church and having a good upbringing because of my parents. But I wasn't allowed to play outside, so all I had to do was watch TV. So then we moved down to North Carolina to like my mom's hometown area. She cut the cord. We had no cable, so we had the antenna with the that turns.
With the
We had Right, exactly. We had that. So, I picked up stations from Virginia and North Carolina because we were right along the borderline, but I had ABC, CBS, and NBC. That was about it, and then a little channel that went in and out, in and out, in and out, and that was a local TV station. And so what I would do was I would watch so much news because I didn't have the cable like I had in New York. And I started to say, I could do this. A lot of times the stories that I saw on news didn't really show a good representation of what it was to be Black in America. It was a lot of mugshots. It was a lot of, here's all the bad things that Black people do. And I was in my community like, no, it's not like that. And that's not a representation of who we are. And so I said, I want to, even at 12, I had the mindset to say, nope, I want to change that because I could tell stories all day about people who live and work and go to school or, with me. And I wanted to be able to change the narrative at 12. Can you believe that? I thought that way. But to me, that was telling the truth. And I wanted to tell the truth. And so, yeah, 12, I knew.
believe that right now, a lot of people are feeling disenfranchised by the news, or whether it's local or national news, that it's really failed Black and brown communities during this critical coverage moment.
Yeah.
Like from the protests, from the police shootings to the elections. What do you think still needs to change? Because I know you saw it at 12, but even now we're still fighting the misinformation, the misrepresentation, and not just being a token in the office or a newsroom, but actually being able to advocate for fair reporting.
Right, right. And so that's a huge part of who I am as a person. And then also having the empowerment of NABJ, that has really helped me. So yes, it is about fighting to get those mugshots off. I mean, I have been in newsrooms where someone stole, this is a true story. Someone stole toothpaste from a pharmacy. And I was told to write that up with their mugshot and put it on air as news. And I'm like, they stole toothpaste allegedly they stole toothpaste. And I'm like, and these are the stories that we want to tell here versus, hey, it's Black History Month. Can we cover all of these historic Black moments that have happened in this community? So it really takes advocating, and it takes, in my opinion, that's why it's so important to have leaders at that decision-making table, people who look like me, who look like you, at that decision-making table to say, hey, that's bias. Hey, we should do this story instead. Hey, what does this contribute to this community or not? What does this contribute to our overall news cycle? What does this say about our own community? Because Black and brown people are part of our community. What does this say? What are we saying about them when we're picking these little petty little things to talk about to represent who they are? And it's not a true representation because I'm here. I'm at this table to show you that it's different. So that's a lot of it is fighting at that decision-making table. And then you have social media. And that's a whole different ballgame because you have people who don't really have integrity, who don't have any journalistic background, haven't gone to school for it, learn that, hey, if you put the wrong thing on air, you can get sued, blackballed, lose your credibility, all of those things. And there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there. So it's a constant fight. And it's one that I think we will unfortunately have to continue to fight.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I even think about like a lot of times journalists are taught to stay neutral, to just report the facts and not try to show those biases. But it's very obvious that the biases are okay when it's towards Black and brown people. So how would someone go about making sure or getting involved as far as advocating for equity in the newsroom? Or how do you draw the line between advocacy and journalism?
So I think it really goes hand in hand in a way. It is about truth telling, fact checking and all of that, but it is about also finding the stories, those nuggets, those gems in your own community and highlighting those, giving voice to those things, because that's still a part of your community, and that's still journalism. That is still what we do as journalists, is find those stories and highlight those and show that to the community that, hey, it's not all dead bodies. There are some stations where, and I've been raised in some newsrooms to believe if it bleeds, it leads. And that's not true, because what happens is people think that when they walk outside, they're going to just walk over dead bodies. And that's not all what our communities are. And so in regards to advocating, it really is saying, hey, I have a full view picture, a whole beat on my community. Here's what's happening. Here are the good things. Here are the issues. Here's what we need. Here are the things that people need to know so they can hold their own representatives accountable. So to me, it's a full picture of really reporting on what all is happening in your community, and not picking these little things that further add to a story of bias and of stereotypes.
So I feel like because of all the different stories you have to cover, because you're the editor, like you hear all the stories that are happening all day long and have to keep up with it all day long. And just for my little time working as the vice president for NABJ underneath your leadership, I just had no clue how much negative information you guys are bombarded with. And I feel like a lot of journalists probably get burnt out on trying to do it all, not only trying to make sure they're doing a good representation of the different stories, but also just keeping their own wellness and their own self in check and making sure they handle all the different things. Because as things are falling apart, maybe on a global level, even on an internal level, things could be happening within your own personal life.
Yes.
You have to show up and tell the story and not give any biases or share any emotion. Right. How do you balance that?
Well, for me, mental health is a huge thing. And then when I say mental health, I'm talking about good mental health. Because of course we know what it's like to be stressed. It's definitely, as journalists, and definitely in my newsroom, I know what it's like to be stressed. I've shared this with many people, and I'm just now really starting to share my story. I know what it's like to be a domestic violence and sexual assault survivor, and having to battle that, and then going to the newsroom and battle things like racism and we don't see you, and you're a woman, so your thoughts don't count, or why is your name Torres? That's a funny name. And why is your hair, why you can't get your hair straight? I've been told that in newsrooms by managers. And so that's been difficult. And, I've had to advocate for myself, whether that is going to HR, whether that is going to managers, going to NABJ to advocate and fight and give me guidance and support while I fought. Those things. But mental health is so very important to me. And I think it should be a real priority to so many people. The pandemic really ripped the blanket off of what was this stigma about taking care of your mental health. Because guess what? We were all at the house together, all going through something together at the same time. And we had to talk about it. We just absolutely had to. So mental health is such a huge thing. I am very intentional about taking care of myself, whether that is going on friends dates. I love friends dates. Whether that is, I'm going to take a bubble bath. I am going to not answer my phone right now. I am not going to check my work emails when I'm off. That preserves me so that I can get up and fight a new day and be able to give my full self without being drained. So I encourage anyone, not just journalists, we are all going through stresses, whether it's in the workplace, whether that's at home, the world, the news. It's just stressful. And so really take time to prioritize your mental health and be intentional with it as well.
So you identify as an Afro-Latina, and an identity that sometimes is overlooked in national conversations, especially in Black spaces. How do you feel that the NABJ can do more to uplift Afro-Latina journalists, and where can they do better?
I think recognizing that we have an array of people, a diaspora of people, right? Many of us in America aren't just, our blood is not strictly African. We're mixed with a lot of stuff, and that's across the world. And so I think I am not one to put people in boxes, because I know what it feels like to be put in a box. I know what it feels like to have a school counselor on your exam say, hey, your choices are white, Black, Alaskan, or other. So you have to figure out which one you want to be in. And I've had to, even in 6th grade, having to call those things out, not knowing that I had power even then, but saying, this is not right. Mom, can you help me? what should I do? Should we go to the school board? Like any of those things. So I think in regards to NABJ, but not just NABJ in particular, because NABJ has been so welcoming to me. They see me as a person and as a whole person. And that's how I want to be viewed. Not in a box, not just a mom, not just a journalist, not just as a sexual assault and domestic assault survivor, but as a whole person. I want you to look at me as my whole self. And I look at people as their whole selves as well. So I think just acknowledging that we exist is the first step. And that's just not for NABJ because, again, NABJ does a good job in that. But of course, it's always important to highlight everyone who is a member, everyone who has a gift that they can bring to the table. And I say that not just for one organization or another, really in any room that you walk into, that should be demanded and that should be respected.
Now you're running for a national NABJ role, and it puts you under a whole new spotlight.
Yes.
What criticism have you heard or things that you've been kind of warned about as far as your new, like you don't already have enough on your plate?
Yeah.
All the new nuances you might have to deal with on a national stage where people may be going through a lot of different things in their area and being able to also advocate for them.
Right. Well, learning more just on the campaign trail has been really good for me and eye-opening. That's something I think I want to continue to do, whether in this role as secretary or just, part of who I am too is the deputy chair of belonging for NABJ's Wellness Task Force. I'm also the deputy chair of Region 3, which comprises of 11 states and the U.S. Virgin Islands, listening to what people are saying because there are some areas of improvement. I think structurally, there are some areas of improvement. And that was something I don't know if I was fully aware of until I started campaigning and I started to hear, hey, what if we allocated money for this instead of that? Or, hey, like our local chapters being acknowledged as much, our task force being acknowledged as much. And so for me, I'm such a problem solver. It's just in me to say, here's a problem. How do we work together? How do we plan this thing together? How do we execute this together? And how do we solve it? So we can move on to the other big things that are also on the table or more things that are going to be coming. So for me, I think that there are some structural improvements that can be made. And I really think just making sure everyone feels included and seen and heard and loved and appreciated. I think, something that this beloved organization needs someone to continue to champion for its members in regards to just feeling seen and heard. And that's something I keep hearing on the campaign trail. And that's something I am committed to doing. And that's why I'm even in this role as deputy chair of belonging, to make people feel like they belong.
Now, with digital media that's reshaping the young people where they get their news, how do we embrace this digital platforms without sacrificing editorial integrity? You kind of clicked on it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
You said it earlier. So I'm curious, like, there has to be a way to bring them into the fold to kind of make sure that everybody's living up to that gold standard. Do you have any suggestions on how NABJ could do that as well?
Well, I think there's a lot of great thinkers. I'll be honest, digital is not my strength, but it needs to be because that's where we are. It's not something that's coming. It's here. It's been here. And then you talk about AI, that's here. It's been here as well. So I think a lot of what we can do overall as people, as journalists, is embrace that it's here. I can think back to maybe my parents in their parents' time where my grandparents used to talk back to the radio because they thought it was a real person who was listening to them and talking to them because those announcers were so friendly and their job was to make you feel connected. And so to go from like, I talk back to the radio because I think the radio hears me, right? This person on the other side hears me, to like this whole tech world, it just shows just the overall evolution from radio to television to social media and all of that. So I think we have to embrace that we as humans have been a part of creating and recreating and inventing new ways of communication. So we should learn that and we should be in those spaces and bring our journalistic integrity, especially to combat the misinformation and the lack of integrity that some people have just because they're not honest people. They don't have a heart to be truth tellers. They don't have a heart to be public servants and do good. And so we have to occupy those spaces as well to help set the record straight.
With shrinking staff, tighter deadlines, and pressure for clicks, how can newsrooms adapt to these new formats, like you mentioned about AI, but also with social videos and AI-assisted reporting without compromising truth and nuance?
Yeah, I think for me, they're platforms. It's just a different space to do what you do. And so, we know that attention span isn't as long. So
I don't
having
know.
more,
Those kids were binging Love Island.
more 86 episodes. Well, you got to keep them engaged, right? So but that
we watch the show and they're on Threads and they're on Instagram. They're everywhere looking up the news and making the edits.
Yeah, but that's cool, and that shows that creativity that's still there, and people having the desire to chime in, to connect, to respond, to relate, to create. Lord, I feel like I'm about to start rapping, y'all. But it just I like spoken word too, but it's so inspiring to see that. But like we have to know how to handle the tools like AI. At one point, I too had a fear. I was like, AI is going to take our jobs. Yeah. And that's the same way I think a lot of people, even when you look at manufacturing, my family, on top of a farming background, they worked in tool manufacturing companies. They, were part of unions that tried to fight for their jobs when mechanics and the things that they worked on to build almost replaced them. And so we have to be able to still be the trainers of that technology, to keep that technology in check. This is how I term it to folks. AI is a tool, right? Like a wrench is not just going to start working on something by itself. You have to be able to take that wrench, mold, do what you have to do with your intelligence, your human intelligence, to be able to build and create. And so that's something with AI that I think we really have to get ahead of before it gets into the wrong hands, which a lot of times we're already seeing even on social media, it has. And then you have fake news that's coming out, and you have people don't know who to trust anymore because they're like, oh, I just saw that. And, I had my parents or my dad definitely comes to me. He's sending me stuff. Is like, is this true? No, daddy. No, this shark doesn't have human legs, dad. Like, I know it looks, I mean, not to knock on my dad or anything, but like,
No, we're all born with that. Like, I'm sure
right.
Millennial, Gen Z, all of us are all like, been there.
Is it real? Is it fake? But we have to be able to hone it in. And that's something that I want to do and I'm still learning to do.
So there is a growing concern also, because you brought up about AI is going to take our jobs, but there is a growing recent wave of journalists firing, hello, Stephen Colbert, as veiled form of censorship as well. So do you believe your newsroom or are under pressure to silence dissenting or difficult voices?
My newsroom in particular, no, but I do think that I'm seeing that in the industry. And what I believe it comes down to at the end of the day is the bottom dollar, that bottom line, that money. Because news is still a business. We're even seeing a lot of these cuts, even, a lot of stuff we're seeing with NPR and local, NPR radio stations and affiliates and all of that. And it is really unfortunate. And we are seeing these shrinking newsrooms. And a lot of it does have to come down to budget. And some of it has to deal with politics. But something I always want to remind journalists is that there are always waves. There were, when I first started, not first started, but I guess my first job in news, going back to the local TV station, I was so happy, so proud to have been a news director and anchor at the station that I interned in. And then the recession happened. And, even then I was told by my general manager, didn't know better at that time. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know how to fight then. Hey, don't say recession on the air because that's going to make our car dealers not want to invest money in us, the advertising that pays your check. So I had to find every other way to dance around that word. And that was tough. And, it felt wrong. It really felt wrong at the time. And then as I grew in journalism and talked to mentors, they were like, that should not have happened. Like you were censored in that moment for telling the truth. You were censored because you were trying to keep, not just you, the station's trying, like your manager's telling you, like, we're going to shut down. And we did. We eventually did shut down. And I don't think that was a result of my reporting. I think that was a result of the economy. And I do think the economy still influences, of course, a lot of the decisions that businesses are making, not just in news, but we're seeing layoffs and cuts a lot of places.
Yeah, I mean, even my BuzzFeed But some of it, it's like also self-inflicted. But moving on. Looking at 5 years, what does a healthy newsroom look like to you? And how do we rebuild trust in journalism after years of being called fake news or like even science is fake? Like there's so many,
Yeah.
even, how do we rebuild those communities that felt left behind?
So I will give my take specifically in my experience, and that is being a compassionate leader. I didn't even know compassionate leadership was a term until later on. But that's always who I've been, is a compassionate person who likes to listen to what people are going through, to relate to people, showing empathy. That to me is such a key, because I have been in newsrooms where people do not care. They will come into that newsroom angry. They will leave angry. I've seen trash cans turned over. I've seen favoritism. I've seen people with good stories shut down. I've seen racism. I've seen sexism. I've seen sexual misconduct. I've seen a lot of those things. And in order to build trust, first of all, one, you need to be someone who really stands by your integrity. Good home training helps, goes a long way as well. But being able to sit with people and say, I know that the job is tough. Let's just talk. I'm here to listen. How can I help with anything? And sometimes it's not even about, can you solve a problem? It's, I just need someone to notice me. And I know what that feels like, of being invisible, not only in the newsroom as a person of color, and that even goes up to management. I felt invisible as a manager before, in a leadership role. But not only that, but as a domestic abuse survivor, you don't know what people are going through. You really don't know. And that's something I wasn't, I was shamed. I was ashamed to talk about that. It was a dark secret, because I'm like, I feel like I was at fault for allowing it to happen and not knowing what all was happening to me. And so, just like with my story, you don't know the stories that people carry with them, the stories that they hold inside that they feel shame about. And so you have to be able to listen and empower them and say, I see you, and it's okay to be seen. And you're in a psychologically safe space. And that branches out to the community. You started home base with your newsroom and your storytellers. And if you can pass along if you can let them know it's okay to be compassionate and to listen to people and try to help people, they will go out and be more compassionate storytellers when they're covering stories of people's worst day, when they're covering hurricanes like Helene. And I think also being present, no one respects a leader who's not there, who just goes around, just commands a bunch of stuff, but they're not there. They're not there in the trenches with you. They're not there just to stand by you and support you. And so that needs to happen more and more newsrooms, that presence of leadership. And that way, when we have our storytellers go out in the community, it makes an impact on those communities, because they're like, you know what? They're there. They always show up. They're here when we need it. So I think being compassionate and being present, those are the two key things. Let's just start there. And I think that could make a world of difference.
Yeah, I have to say thank you so much for sharing your story again. It's not my first time hearing it, because I know you in real life.
Thank you.
It was like when you first told me about that, it brings me back to that moment when you told me about it, because you do have such a strong presence. You do have such a compassion about you that it's so easy to unload on you and not realize, oh, wait, you're going through all of this right now. Like so I really appreciate that you shared this, because I think so many times women, like you mentioned, they look inward and what did I do? Because we've all been conditioned into thinking, oh, what was she drinking? What was she wearing? And it's not ever really the case. It's a power move. And knowing that people can come to you, that you're a safe space, but not only you've been there before, because I think we all saw with the Casey and P. Diddy situation, or the Trump situation, or Bill Cosby, like we've seen it so many times play out, like, well, why didn't she come out sooner? Or why didn't she do that? And it's like, because we've seen over and over again, our stories don't matter, but the more people tell it, the more people are going to have compassion for that. And I really appreciate that you shared your story. And I was
Thank you for creating a safe space.
Until we're almost to the end, because if I start crying, well, story changes.
I understand. But Camille, seriously, thank you for being a safe space for me. And I'm not going to cry. I'm going to try.
Yeah, because I know what's coming up next is rapid fire.
Okay, good.
Let me just get the rest of the hard questions, and then I can acknowledge it, because I was like, people are going to think I am so cruel, because she just said
look, we both holding it back. I want to thank you for being a safe space for me always, because I wouldn't have told you that had I not felt like you were a safe space for me. So thank you for listening, for understanding, and for being supportive of me regardless. Love you.
Always, always. Like, I'm always team women, but even more so for people I know in real life, because
Yeah.
they've been there for me too when I have my crash outs. And now that the young people taught me it's called crash out.
Crashing out.
So speaking of crashing out, we're now going to rapid fire, changing the mood. Okay.
All right.
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Night owl.
What's the first word that comes to mind when you hear breaking news?
Run.
Towards it, do you drink coffee, tea, or energy drinks?
Coffee.
Favorite journalist of all time?
That's hard. I'll say Anderson Cooper.
Okay. One story you'll never forget that you've covered.
The town of Princeville, built by slaves who have been continuously hit by storms and could be impacted disproportionately even more with climate change and them risking losing their entire town.
Yeah, it's always heartbreaking when I hear that Princeville on the town. Of course, I also think of Prince. Like, I guess it was named after Prince, or Prince came to visit, something with Prince. So I think of two different things when I hear Princeville. And maybe it was a old wives' tale about the Prince part.
Maybe. I don't know. I need to investigate that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to Google it because that might have been some 1990s fake news. Like the herbal. Anyway,
Maybe.
What's more stressful, live shots or newsroom meetings?
Live shots.
Okay. What are newsroom must-have? Snacks, music, or sticky notes, or something else?
Pens, sticky notes, notepads.
What's one show you binge when you finally unplug?
HGTV, House Hunters International.
Oh, that's funny. I work with a designer, so I get that's TV on his website.
Oh, so cool.
It's so much fun. Okay. If you weren't a journalist, what would you be?
Lawyer.
Oh, interesting. Okay. 3 words that describe your leadership style. We got compassionate, because you mentioned that earlier.
Executioner. Respectful. Newsroom mom. I know that's 2 words. Mama.
That's right. Love your website. I have your newsroom. Okay. So this is just for my own nerdy curiosity. Is there any show or movie that you feel actually captures what it's like to work in the news? Or do you not even watch them because it's like, oh, let's show them?
I kind of don't like to watch them sometimes, but I will say this. I don't know if it captures the newsroom, but I feel like it captures a part of the industry, and that is The Devil Wears Prada.
Oh.
It's one of my favorite movies because I've had a boss that was very similar to the role
of Miranda.
The boss of Miranda, yes. And I was Andrea.
Okay, first off, I really hope they do the sequel justice, because I will watch that anytime I'm like, oh, I can't find anything to watch. I put on Devil. Every book I ever listened to. I think I was either going to California or coming back from California into North Carolina. I listened to Devil Wears Prada, and I can't remember the actress that did the voice, but I was like, oh my God, it could be a movie. It was so good. And I don't know if it already was a movie and I just was out of the loop because I worked on it.
Now I need to listen to the audiobook now because I love the movie.
It's so good. Okay, one last one. What journalist, living or dead, would you love to have worked with, which could be different than your favorite journalist of all time?
Well, there was a journalist. She's still living. I watched her when I was 12. I've had a chance to meet her. She's a part of NABJ. Her name is Alveda Ewell. I wanted to be Alveda Ewell. And full circle, I got to meet her through NABJ and to find out my best friend was her hairstylist. How? But she was just amazing. And she was someone I looked up to. I never got a chance to work at her station, but I got a chance to meet her. And she's amazing. And she actually has roots tied to the same community that my mom grew up in, which just blew my mind.
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad to ask, because I was like, kind of the same question, but not really, because I watched the gosh, now I can't think of her name. I was messing up last night calling her Barbara.
Yeah, Barbara Walters. Yeah. That was the close one. I almost said her, but I said nope. Alveda Ewell was a Black woman, and I remember saying, I can be an anchor if she can, because she just inspired me to do that.
Well, I used to want to work on The View, and I was like, oh, And I loved Barbara until I
Yes.
watched the documentary about her last night.
And it was very interesting, wasn't it?
I still love her. Don't get me wrong, 'cause I'm like, the way it was back then, I could understand them pitching women against each other because they do it in almost every industry.
Yep.
But almost make it seem like you have to be the best because they're not
Right.
in the room for anybody else after you. And then, they pitch you. But it was just kind of disheartening to see how much she wasn't a girl's girl in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Like she opened the door just to slam it behind her type of situation. But I still would have liked to have worked with her just to see how she did everything, how she was able to get some of those horrible people to just open up to her, but also maybe to say, hey, girl, maybe not ask that.
Interviews were, woo, I mean, legend.
Well, again, I am so grateful that you were able to take some time out of your busy news schedule and visit with the eSpot. I want to make sure everybody knows how they can get in touch with you because obviously I like to mentor. Anytime I meet a college kid that's like interested in working in the industry, I send them your way and you're always with them. So do give out the information they can get to you directly.
Yeah. LinkedIn is a really great resource.
Just in case.
Yeah. LinkedIn is a really great resource. I have folks who I mentor hit me up all the time. In my DM, people hit me up on Facebook, Marie Torres on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and go by the Queen Marie on Instagram.
Which I love, by the way.
Well, to be completely transparent, and I think you may know, Camille, too, that my first name is actually Queen. I go by Marie, my middle name, because when I first started in news, speaking of, bias, I came, started in news and the GM said, hey, what's that M stand for as you signed your name on the contract? I said, Marie. And then he started introducing me as Marie because he didn't want to acknowledge me as Queen. But it's had its benefits. So I go by Marie, and my name is Queen. My mother's name was Queen, and my grandma's name is Queen. So
I like when you told me your mom's name, I was like,
Queen Marie. But yeah, Marie is what I've gone on professionally on air. So that's what I go by. But yes, if someone hollers Queen, I'm like, yes, I still answer to that too. Especially family.
As you should.
Yes.
Every girl's dream has been being a part of royalty, and you were born into it.
It seems like it.
Well, anyway, again, make sure you connect with her on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the social media sites, or write down below, comment, and I can help introduce you as well, and so on. And make sure you join NABJ, NABJ RTU, because we do have like college tours and all these different things where you can meet her in person if you're in the Raleigh-Durham area. But now she's getting ready to be national, so she may not be those things anymore because she's going to be too big time. Just my thing.
No, I love our home team.
I am biased, but anyway, I want to thank you so much for joining, and thank you everyone out there for watching, and make sure you keep up with Marie Torres and also watch Spectrum News 1, right? So you'll see, well, you won't see her, but you'll see the people she puts on the screens and the stories that you make sure that has an even and fair and distribution and all the words. And make sure you tune in to the eSpot every week. Subscribe, like, share, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend, and make sure they come back and watch again.
Awesome. Thank you, Camille. Thanks, everyone. Y'all have a good night. Girl, you the best, and she love me when I'm in it, and she never be pretending. Nothing is friend. She gonna tell you what she bought.